That's kind of like one of those goosebump stories, like when Thomas says, now I believe. You're like, oh, yeah. Let us pray. Let the words and songs of our mouths be acceptable to you, O Lord, our Redeemer and our Rock. Amen. You may have noticed in your bulletin it said Sight Read Sunday at this point in the liturgy. Does anybody know what sight reading is? When I was growing up and I'd auditioned for various musical things, usually part of the audition was them putting a piece of music in front of you that you likely had never seen before and them telling you, play it. And then you would stumble through it. Today is going to be Sight Read Sunday, meaning that Maisie has not prepared what will come because you are going to tell her what's to come right now. You will name a song, and she will play it. Any song in the hymnal, you have to sing with her. You can't just say, play Rhapsody in Blue. Go ahead. Now, you have to pick a hymn in the hymnal, blue or green, and Maisie will play it for you. But we couldn't let Maisie have all the sight reading fun. I will also give impromptu sermons, about 3 minutes each. So Maisie will play a song that you pick, and you'll give me a topic, and then I will give you a 3-minute sermon on whatever topic you want. If you're the type of person that loves to tell other people what to do, today is your day. So who has a song they'd like to sing right now? Yes, in the back. Jeff. On Eagle's Wings, 770 in the Blue Book, I think. Got it, Maisie? On Eagle's Wings. Who has a topic? Donna. Jesus as a boy. Okay. Is it 770, Maisie? Oh, I was so close. I had 2 of the 3 numbers correct. 779 in the Blue Book, On Eagle's Wings. Jesus as a boy. Oh, you're done already. What's the next song? We'll give Maisie a couple minutes of preparation time. 770, which is Born and Cry. I get those two mixed up. Born and Cry, 770, Maisie, will be the next one. So Jesus as a boy, the first thing I thought of, maybe this is callous of me, and if anyone else has read this book, you'll think even lower of me than maybe you already do. There's a book written a number of years ago. I can't remember the author, but the book was called Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Childhood Friend. It was a comedy book written about Jesus as a child. And so the very first, it's all written through the lens of his best friend growing up. So the first scene is this guy Biff, Jesus' friend, watching from a distance his first encounter with Jesus, who he calls Joshua in the story as his Hebrew name. And it says, Joshua is sitting beside the well with his mom and his little brother James as his mother is drawing water out of the well. And Joshua has a lizard hanging out of his mouth, wriggling its tail and feet. He takes the lizard out of his mouth and he puts it down on the ground for his brother James to play with. And so back and forth, James plays with it, and then with a stone, he bops the lizard in the head. And he hands it to Joshua. Back down in front of James, and James plays with it again, back and forth. Bops it in the head again. Back to Joshua, and so on and so on. The young Messiah using his little gifts. What parents have been frustrated with their children from time to time? We can say this now since they're all out of the space. Jeff's hand was up like super fast. Stacy's being calm and being like the pastor's wife, like, no, should I raise my hand? Let me raise my hand nice and high. Who has said things to their children or other children that they maybe wish they wouldn't have done later? Or maybe gotten emotional in ways they wish they wouldn't have? Kevin is volunteering his parents here right up front. Thank you for sitting right up front. That is very helpful. Yeah, so do you think Mary and Joseph ever were the same way with young Jesus? I mean, the Jesus from the Gospel according to Biff wasn't the Jesus we know, but do you think Mary and Joseph got the same sort of emotion, like that yelling sort of experience with Jesus growing up? Yeah, there's one story. There's no stories except for one in the Scriptures that talk to us about Jesus as a little kid. And we have no idea his age, just that he's a young child. And it's this story of Jesus and his family going to Jerusalem, to the temple, it sounds like. And then the family all get back in their caravan, and they leave. And it's like, 2 or 3 days later, Mary and Joseph realize that young Jesus isn't with them. And so first thing you want to say is like, 2 or 3 days? Holy neglectful parents. They're the worst parents ever. So they go back after they can't find Jesus, Mary and Joseph, and they come upon Jesus, and he's still in the temple. And it says something to the effect of him sitting around with all the other elders and the teachers of the temple. And he's just listening and talking with them. And so the part of me says, oh man, if I was Jesus' dad, I would have been like, Jesus, get out of the temple! I would have been so... so you can imagine the frustration of his parents at this moment. The fear, the anxiety of their rebellious child. I mean, there might not have been a clear rule about Jesus, you stay with us, but, I mean, there's some major lines of parenting and children being a child here that have been broken. So when you say Jesus as a child, I think probably most of us in our gut would say, Jesus was just he was the Messiah. Of course he was the perfect child. And yet the one story shows us a child who is willful, does his own thing, and probably scared the crap out of his parents. All right, 770. What's the next topic? You guys are too bashful. A rainbow. Okay, rainbow it is. Let's sing Morning Cry. Next song. Faith of our fathers. 500 in the Green Book. Faith of our fathers. Rainbows. Rainbows. When someone asks you a question or says something, the right pastoral response is always, what do you think? When you all see rainbows, what do you think? Noah, God's bull crap, you guys. No way. It's going to rain or it is raining. It's raining and the sun's shining all at the same time, yeah. And what else? What else do you think? Pot of gold, yes. Or that there's treasure at the end of the rainbow. Leprechauns. I mean, someone just asked me a couple weeks ago about, like, I actually went to the end of a rainbow to look for the gold. I'm like, what? Really? I think if you polled our culture, you would not get Noah or God's covenant. But we here in the church, I do hope that was the first response. Or maybe you're just saying that because you didn't want to be the guy that said pot of gold, or the girl that said leprechaun. So the one time the rainbow pops up in the scriptures is at the end of the Noah story. And the Noah story is an interesting story. Probably a lot of us just think about it in the kind of way we were taught at Sunday school, where it rains for 40 days, everything was destroyed on the earth, and then at the end of a year and a month plus, they all come out and there's a rainbow and everybody lives happily ever after. But the rainbow is more than just everybody lives happily ever after. It's a promise. Do you know what the promise is? The covenant. Someone mentioned the covenant. Do you know what it actually says, what the covenant is? Yes, someone is a biblical scholar back there. That's exactly it. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant, the promise, between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant, and that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood or destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it, and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of the flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all the flesh that is on the earth. I didn't actually read the same verse over and over again. That actually is exactly what it says. The Noah story is three stories kind of all merged together, which is why there's some repetition or numbers that don't line up well. Anyway, so is it true? Don't floods still happen? It doesn't destroy the whole earth, but it destroys what we think of as the earth. In New Orleans, a flood destroyed everything there for those brothers and sisters there. I think a lot of these stories, especially from the Old Testament, we do well not to read them like as history sort of text. Like if you had a video camera there, you would have got just like this. I say this to the Bible study all the time. This is probably not one of these moments where if you had a video camera, it would have happened verbatim like that. But rather it tells a story. It explains why things are the way they are. On one hand, the rainbow, it explains why there are rainbows for people 6,000 years ago. It's God's promise to never do this again to creation. And yet we know it does happen in creation. And so the rainbow, in some was that the three? Was I done? Okay. The rainbow has this unique beauty of being there in the sun and in the rain. And so I wonder if it can also teach us that God exists, and God promises to be there in those places that are both in the rain, in the storms, and yet when the sun is shining at the same time. And often those moments happen at the exact same time. It's not all terrible and rain and storm and flood and destruction. And it's not all sunshine and happiness and dandelions and other flowers. But rather it's this combination of both. And rainbow can only happen when both of those things are happening. The rainbow can't happen right now outside. And it can't happen in the midst of a raging storm. It has to happen when the conditions are just right, both beauty and the storm. And it reminds me, in this Noah story, that God exists in both those places. And that's the covenant, that God promises to exist in all of that. Next topic. You've already had one. Jeff raised his hand again. He already had one. Anyone else? Well, do you want to be Jeff? All right, Jeff. Are you kind of alluding to that verse in the gospel from just now? What's that? Sure. I like that strong. You're like a silhouette for me. Your head's just high enough over that window that all I see is a silhouette of you. It's perfect. I don't have to see your face. Ha ha ha. Faith of our fathers. So near the end of our gospel, the whole story is Thomas not being there, and then he is there at the end. Let me just go back a little bit forward to verse 27. So we have this moment where Jesus says to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand, put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Doubt is the wrong word, because what is Thomas forever known as? Doubting Thomas. What a bad rap he gets. Doubt is not actually the word used there. The word is believe in the negative. Do not believe, but believe. Do not be an unbelief person, but believe. And then it goes on, Jesus says, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen, and yet come to believe." The question there for me is always, well, have seen me. What does it mean to see Jesus? Has any of us seen Jesus? No. So is he talking about us? And is this a statement for the rest of the church for all time after Jesus? That we would be blessed in our not seeing Jesus yet still coming to faith? If so, I love that, because it certainly is a statement of our faith, right? Part of us wants to go, "Thomas, you idiot, you were right there. You got to have this opportunity the rest of us never got to have." But the real question is, what does it mean to believe? What is it to believe? When I say, "Do you believe?" or when people say that to you, how might you respond? That's a tough one, right? I think one of the first things that pops into my head when we think of belief, just stereotypically in our church community and lots of church communities, when we say the word belief, don't we think about like having the right statements about God in our head? If someone says, "Do you believe?" I would say, well, let's see, I would probably believe in the Trinity. I would believe that Jesus was a teacher that changed the world by his teachings and then died sacrificially, rose, and I think all these things. So that's what belief is, right? All these things in my head. Is that kind of what many of us would say? All the things that are in our head? The Jews and the early Christians did not have that understanding of the word belief. Belief was a way of life. It wasn't a mental thing that you thought. It was a thing that you did. So when Jesus calls out Thomas here and says, do not be a doubter, don't be an unbeliever, but believe, he's talking about his whole way of life that is now changed from not being one that is buying into this new Jesus way of life into this new Jesus way of life, and becomes even more powerful in that last word, in that last verse, verse 29. Have you believed because you have seen me? And here it is for us. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet come to believe. Not a mental day switch thing like, well, I didn't yesterday, but today, oh my, the world is different. But rather, and life is different for me. In everything that I do, in the way I act, in the way I care for one another, the way I care for the world, the way I just live my life is the way you believe, not in the things you will mentally say. We're going to transition this into the creed, which ironically is exactly what we believe. But the creed isn't what we believe. It's the start. And it has to change us. It has to be who we are. We can't say the creed. We have to live the creed. We can't say we are Christians. We have to be Christians. Christianity isn't an identity. It is a way of life. You know these words. Let's stand and say the creed, and let it be a beginning of a way of life for us.